You did Steve Wright in the Afternoon for over a decade. It was a huge show. I can't tell you enough how much I love Steve. Well, no, and I know you fairly well, and we never get to talk about it.
I remember coming to Radio 1 in 1980, and they said, we want you to talk about the bands. I said, well, I don't know anything about the bands, really. Can I do something else? So I worked up a format. I thought, well, what can I do that is going to be something different? I'll have a few characters. I'll play a different kind of music apart from what's on the playlist. And then I just threw all the elements together. You know, a bit of what we used to call meaningful speech in local radio.
Sure.
Do you remember meaningful speech?
Very meaningful.
I want to say something meaningful.
I'd try and still do that today.
I've heard. So I just wanted to not be talking about the music guy. I wanted to talk about things. So whatever it was that concerned people, television, or it could be radio, could be royalty, it could be anything that's about life. Showbiz gossip, petrol stations, whatever it happens to be, talk about things, as we do today. We will tell you about a marriage where the groom is 103 years old and the bride is 107. I think it was just because it was something different. It was slightly subversive. There's a little bit of satire in there. And it wasn't like, there you go, that's the great sound of. Sometimes we're a bit near the mark, I suppose, but not very often. Not like his good self, say, for example.
Me? I'm nothing but clean.
They were actually out on the roof of Broadcasting House. I mean, what is that church there?
What is that church? C of E, I think.
Is that C of E?
Yep.
Is it? They're all double parked out there, you sure?
Yeah! So breakfast, afternoon king of radio, and then radio was in a wobbly, very wobbly period.
Yeah.
At that point. Tell me how they give you the job. Run me through the whole your whole feeling about breakfast.
I probably would have stayed on the afternoon, but for the fact they asked me, would I be interested in doing the breakfast show? I honestly never considered it before. It wasn't one of those things, say, like yourself, where, you know, you always wanted to do the breakfast show. It wasn't on my radar at all. So they said, well, you know, you really should be thinking about moving up, you know, a promotion. So I thought, that's an odd thing to say. So I kind of did it because I wanted to be part of the new management. Even though I'm totally dysfunctional in the morning. I can't, like you, Chris, I just can't get up at, you know, 4 o'clock and come in and entertain. And I think it was only mildly successful, really, my tenure on breakfast. It only lasted 18 months. It wasn't a disaster.
It wasn't a disaster.
It was just kind of okay.
I promise you, look, if you're listening to this first day, it will get better. By about Wednesday or Thursday, we'll be right on the case. We'll stop all the mucking about by Thursday.
By the time I took over the breakfast show, I was 39. I don't know how old you are, but that's...
24.
24, so you're okay for a while. And by the time I was 40, I suppose people were kind of saying, well, Radio 1 really needs younger broadcasters. We're broadcasting to the sub-teens. And I'm thinking, well, I am old enough to be their father, so I better leave.
During a very uncertain time for Radio 1, this was not a good moment to lose a breakfast show host.
The world is collapsing around our ears. I turned up the radio.
So things didn't really pan out for Radio 1 with Steve at breakfast as they were hoping. Radio 1 really needed to turn things around. They needed something special, they needed something different, and they needed something big.
Chris Evans, 95 to 97.
It's BBC Radio 1, and we're on the air. You better get used to this lot, unfortunately, because they're going to be here quite a lot. Okay, it's now 7.5 minutes to 7 o'clock on Monday, the 24th of April, 1995, a day that will go down in history.
And wake up, it's a beautiful morning. Feel the sun shining for your eyes. Wake up, it's a beautiful wake up. What could be the very last time? BBC Radio 1 FM.
Now, at this point, I should really go and speak to Mr. Christopher Evans. but Chris Evans doesn't want to talk to us, which is a bit of a shame. Now, I could just move on and not talk about it, but actually we should, because Chris's breakfast show on Radio 1 was brilliant. It was massive, it was properly of its time, it was hugely popular, it was amazing. It kind of changed the breakfast show on Radio 1 as well. If I would have spoken to him, one of the things I would have asked him was about the whole Britpop era, which was slap bang in the middle of Chris's time. It was Blur, it was Oasis, and Chris was all over it.
It's 7.5 minutes to 9. You're coming up Oasis. Oh, I like them. Oasis. Oasis.
Today is gonna be the day that they're gonna throw it back to you. By now you should have somehow realized what you gotta do. I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now.
Two of Britain's most popular pop groups have begun the biggest chart war in 30 years.
I'm sure you've heard it all before, but you never really had it down.
Manchester band Oasis and their arch rivals Blur released new singles today, each hoping to reach the #1 spot next week. The music industry hasn't seen anything like it since the Beatles fought it out with the Rolling Stones in the 60s.
I would also have asked him about Euro 96. Chris was on the radio every day talking about football. Euro 96, it was in England, and for that moment, everybody loved football. Even people who didn't like football loved football, and Evans was telling that big story.
18 days to go until the start of Euro 96. Well, I'm very excited about that. And of course, yesterday, the English football team, great preparation for Euro 96. What did they do? Yes, they flew to China.
But I still see that tackle by Moore, and when Lineker scored, Bobby belting the ball, and Nobby dancing 3 lines on the shirt. Jules Rimet still gleaming.
But of course, after all the good times, I then would have to ask Chris about where it all went wrong.
It seemed the excitement was going to Chris's head.
It's 25 to 5, and this is the first drink of the evening session. This is the beginning of the end.
Then, confrontation with his bosses.
Due to circumstances beyond our control, we're unable to bring you the Chris Evans Breakfast Show this morning as advertised.
The Radio 1 DJ Chris Evans has resigned from the BBC after his request to take Friday mornings off was turned down.
So, Monday to Thursday, we wanted to be here. Apparently that's not good enough, so we've got to go.
Where did you go?
And that was that.
When things went wrong for you, when the nights came out for you, where did you go? When Moyles met the Radio 1 Breakfast DJs, except Chris Evans.
You know, it's a shame that Chris didn't want to talk to us about doing the Radio and Breakfast Show, because it was a brilliant breakfast show. It was of its time, it was massively popular. He was brilliant at doing it and understood what you had to do to make a really exciting breakfast show. So after he went, Radio 1 had a big problem. Who would they put on to replace him? So they chose 2 great broadcasters, a little bit quirky, a little bit different, and they put them on the breakfast show. They were called Mark and Lard.
I think our breakfast show was poor.
Look at you there, you scruffy gate. You got them knackered old slippers on.
I know.
You're not dressed up for the show.
No. Unlike Chris, we didn't do anything interesting. You know, it was never a good fit. Radio 1 needed someone more show busy, and we weren't it.
Now, I don't know about you, because I'm me, but I don't watch that much telly, because I really believe too much TV rots the brain, unlike radio, which of course enriches the cultural life of the nation. Oh. There you go, perfect.
I've come to regard failure on that greater scale as quite heroic. You know, I still did do the Radio 1 breakfast show. We didn't last long. We didn't last the shortest, I don't think. So you think you've got to do these things once, haven't you?